In this course, you will learn how web pages work. You can download the attached file and then play around with the actual things you learn inside this course. Keep in mind that any web page is written in the language .html. So in this, you can use the web browser and mess around with this example. For example, here we can change something. Let's change this and click show web page. And then the result shows on the bottom. So you'll see the content changed. So we can change that and click show web page to see the results. So that's one way you can mess around. Another way you can do this is copy the code into a new file and then save the file. So with actual web page code, gonna click save as, and for example, example HTML, and then you would be able to open that file. So if I now open example HTML, you'll see it shows the actual web page. Now, the most easiest, of course, is just to use this example where we can change the code. So in this course, you will learn how to make web pages, how web pages are, how that actually works internally, and what is JavaScript. So we're going to a bit the scripting language. We'll go into Stylesheets. It's a technique to make web pages look the same. So if you have many different pages, you don't have to rewrite a lot of code, but you can actually make them all look the same. And we'll go into some security vulnerabilities that happen with many developers and many people. They make mistakes, security mistakes that can lead to malicious results. We'll go into sensitive data exposure and HTML injection. So two vulnerabilities that can exist on web pages. And we'll explain how that works inside this course as well. So by the end of this course, you'll be able to make your own web pages, to do some JavaScripting, to create your own style sheets, and also to prevent some security mistakes that might happen in your own code or with other people's web pages. And so it's really like a more developer kind of oriented course, but it has some security parts in it as well. And it's really a total beginner's course, so you don't need any prior knowledge about web pages, about hacking, about security, or anything like that. It's really a course that is created towards total beginners. And all you need is a web browser. And that's basically all you need for this course. You don't need anything else besides that. So it's a really basic course. You'll learn the absolute basic of how web pages work, and also some of the security risks that might happen with web pages. By the end of this course, you'll know how websites are created, and you'll know basic security issues with websites. So when you visit a website with your browser, so that can be like Safari, Google Chrome, Firefox, your computer, the program called the browser, so that can be Chrome or Firefox or any other, makes a request to a so-called computer, which is called a web server. And this web server to ask a file. So for example, /cookies or /about, and then it sends that request to the web server, and the web server in return sends you the code of that website back. So you connect with the web server, with the computer, and that returns all kind of code to your computer. And that code is then turned into a website by your browser. So the browser's task is basically to turn that code into a website. This is the same with any website. For example, here we have a website, and you'll see the code that is given from the web server on top, and the web browser then turns that code into a website. Now this web server can be anywhere in the world. It depends on what you type in your browser. For example, if we open a new tab and go to google.com, for example, we go to google.com, and you'll see it returns a website. In most of all browsers, you can right click and click view page source or view source, and that will show you the code of the actual website. So depending on which website you visit, for example, we might visit something else some other website, and right click, view source, and you'll see that returns the code that is actually sent from the server, and the browser then turns it into a website that you can view. So any website is written in that code, and that code is called HTML code. So you'll see HTML code. So on top here we have HTML code. If you look at the website before, you also saw that is HTML code. Any website is written in that HTML code. So there are two major things that make up a website. It's the front end and the back end. So the front end is what your browser shows. So any code is then given to the browser and shown. That is the front end. And the back end, usually websites have some kind of database where the data is stored, or they do some processing. So there are many things that a web browser can do. Here you just see some of them. So from the code, it turns that code into a visible website. For example, you have all kind of tags here. So what is a tag? A tag is those codes you see here. So every line has a tag, which some code in between, smaller than, greater than, and the end tag. So you'll see most of them have that. And some of them have things in between. For example, we have the head tag with the title in between, with the title tag, and the end of the head tag, the body tag, and the end of the body tag. So a website is made using all kind of tags, which have different meaning to the web browser. So that is HTML. It's short for the hypertext markup language. So you can forget that. Just remember, HTML is the language that websites are written in. So the tags, also known elements, are the building blocks of a website. Now here we see a simple website, which code, so the HTML code, is then turned into this website. So first, let's go over those tags. So the first tag defines that we want to use HTML code. Which version? So this tells it use latest version. Now this is the root element of the website. So all the page comes after that. Now many websites have some information like a title or a favicon. So the little icon you have on websites, like here, there's a little icon. That's the favicon. So all that you would define in the head tag. So that section you can configure, for example, the title and the other kind of information like a favicon and stuff like that. Then we have the body tags, which contains the actual website code. So the actual thing that is shown inside the web browser. So H1 is the title. So I can show you that. But that's not the title shown on top in your tab, but it's the title shown in your page here. So if we click on show web page, you'll see it shows this is the title, and we can change that into anything. So you'll see that changes the website just by changing the HTML code, the H1 tag. So H1 just is a big line of text, a header text. So we can add another one, for example, and we have to add the end tag. Now if we click run, you'll see now we have two text there. So H1 tag is just large heading. Next we have a paragraph text. So this paragraph can be any length, just shows text. So you can add whatever text to your web page. You'll see now the little text here has changed. Next we have image tags. So the image tag, it shows an image on the web page. And you'll see we have two images here, but one doesn't show. And you'll see they have a source component in an image tag, and the source component defines the image. So you'll see here we have the image tag cat-1.jpg and cat-2. It doesn't have any file extension. So let's see in that directory. So I'll go into the image directory, and you'll see there is a cat2, but it has a .jpg extension. So we can change that into .jpg. So this is just a directory of images I have in my computer. And you'll see it's cat-2.jpg. So now if I click show web page, you'll see the image is visible. So the actual the images can be images on your server, or it can be images on someone else's server. So with any internet web page, so when you search for images, you can right click and copy image link, or copy the image URL. So that would work as well if we say paste that in and click show, you'll see it gets the image from someone else's server. But in this case we use the images on our computer. Now it says here add image of a dog, so we can do that. We would type image source, then the location of the image. So we have doc.jpg. And we can click show web page. So you'll see now it added another image to our web page. So this would be the same in every browser. So whether you use Safari, Chrome, Firefox, Escape, whatever browser, it would show HTML text as an actual web page. And so it's really nice because you can add as many images as you want, or as many text, depending. You can just display your text basically. So we have some other images like animal.jpg. And you have to be careful when you include the images, because for example now it won't work. And why is that? Because here we have the extension .jpg, and if you actually look at the image file here, it says .jpg with an E. So you have to be very careful to specify the exact file name, otherwise it won't display your image. Now of course you can add more text. This is actually HTML comments, so even though there is this text, it's not shown anywhere on the website. So you can write anything between comments. For example, we can add a comment. Whatever text you want to display or to add here. But when we run it, you'll see it doesn't output anything because comments are ignored by web browsers. So you can add any comment in there, but web browsers will ignore them completely. And so any comment is written using this tag and has this final tag, and it's just ignored by the web browser. So you can add as many comments as you want, but of course it's optional, so you can also delete them. Now we could add another paragraph text with the p tag and the end tag. And now if we click, you'll see it added some text here on the bottom. So the p tag acts as a paragraph, image tags add images, one adds a header, and the title text adds a title to the screen. Now there's different types of headers, and they're just numeric, so you can say h1, h2, and I'm gonna copy it several times because we also have h3, h4 and h5. Now keep in mind those tags must end with the same tag name. So if it starts with h3, it must also end with h3. Or in this case, starts with h4, it must end with h4. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. And you'll see it changes from red to green. And now you'll see there's different headings. So they have different sizes. h1 is the biggest, then h2 smaller, h3 smaller, and so on. Now, so you can use them to write your text with different headings. Of course, not everything would be in capitals. You would have maybe a chapter and a paragraph and a subparagraph, and depending on your website. So using h1 up to higher numbers, you can create different size of those headings. Now, if I click show web page again, you'll see those web pages. But if I hold my mouse on top of them, it doesn't show any text. So you can describe images using the alt tag. So in addition with the source parameter, there's also the alt text when you can add some text. For example, You can add some little text there, or any of them, and then click Show Web Page. So it doesn't seem to show anything, but when you hover your mouse over it long enough, it will show some text on top of it. So that is the alt text. When you hold your mouse over it long enough, it would show the description. So those are the basic tags of HTML web pages. Of course, we can also change the title tag here. And the title text is shown in the web page titles. So in this case, you don't see that, but the title text will show the tab title. Whereas H1 here is not a title, but it's just the text you see here. So something to keep in mind. And write all your code between the body tags. So the body text, this is the beginning and this is the end. So between those tags, you have your website that shows. So don't put your code inside the head text, because that is for general web page information like the title, the favicon, and things like that. So that's how basic web pages work. Of course, we can change the order. For example, if we would put this one in the first in the code, you'll see the actual order changes. Or we can change the first one with the second one. Perhaps you want to show first the doc. So the order of the code is also how it's shown in the web page itself. Now the web pages themselves, they are styled using a language called Stylesheets or CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. And with that language we can define how the website should look like, or what the website should look like. And the nice thing about the style sheet is that style sheets can be files, so they can be included in many web pages, and all those web pages will then look the same. Instead of, you could imagine if we would define here that the title should be red, then every new web page we would create, also we need to define that color is red. So instead of doing that, you can include a style sheet. So with a style sheet, you use the style tag, and they have their own language called the CSS language. And for example, we can define that the color of the text should be red. Now if we run this, you see now the colors of the web page are red, because that is what defined in our style sheet. You can define other things. For example, maybe you want the color to be blue. You could define custom fonts and many different things with that style sheet code. Now you might want to change some other defaults. So you can do tag specific, for example H1. We'll change the H1. You'll know we used body here. That's because everything is between the body tag. So when we do body, it changes everything in the body tag. But we could, for example, do H1, and that would only change the H1 tag. So we could say color green, and now click show web page. You'll see now only the H1 tag is changed and not the paragraph text. So we could say, for example, body. In general, we want a black text. So you'll see the text is black, but maybe we want the paragraphs to have a red color. And now we could click show web page, and you'll see the actual text is now in red. So this code is called Cascading Style Sheet, or CSS. So CSS is the actual code. You can also change many things like background, or use a background image. For example, you could say background light blue, and now the background of the whole page would be light blue. Now, when you don't define any style sheet, it uses the web browser defaults. So you can change anything, including the size or the type. So we could say font style italic. That should make the text italic, and you'll see there the text now changed to italic. There's also the bold text, so you could say bold. Turns it into bold text. Now by default this header text is always bold. So that's how you can define a style sheet, and this is called an internal style sheet because it's defined in the website itself. So when we have another web page, you would have to write those same codes again. So that's a bit impractical. What you can do instead is to save your style sheet to a file. So we can create a new file. So we will save our style sheet to a file. So I'm gonna name it style.css. And now we can include that file in our web page. So instead of defining it manually, we can now include it our file. And I name it style.css. And you'll see we have the same style, but now it's loading that style from a file called style.css. So we use the link tag with rel is style sheet. So this is how we can include an external style sheet. That style sheet is now a file. And that file is called style.css with the actual code that we defined. So now if we would change the color here, for example, to red, and click show web page, or actually refresh, show. Okay, that's unloaded the web page. So let's include style.css and click show web page. You'll see now the tag is red as well. So this would load the style sheet from an external file, and any web page we create, we can then include the same style sheet. JavaScript is one of the most popular programming languages in the world because it runs on the web. So why people use JavaScript is because it makes pages, web pages, interactive. So HTML will give you a page like this, but it won't be interactive, right? So you can move things, but it's just a static page. It doesn't move, it just exists, and you can read it like a magazine. But when you use JavaScript, your web pages can be interactive, and you can fully control the web pages. And that's also how any web app on the internet is made. Without JavaScript, they would just be pages. So JavaScript can be dynamically update the web page, for example, with a button or with timers and so on. So JavaScript is added inside the code as well, using the script tag. So for example, you could use the script tag and then include some JavaScript, and then the end tag. So that would include the JavaScript file, funny.js. You see each JavaScript file has the .js extension. Can be included like this. Now, of course, we don't have this funny.js file. If it would exist, this is how you would include it, using the script tag. So JavaScript makes any web page interactive. You can also include JavaScript code directly in your web page. So you could say script and then the end tag. And then you could write a line or multiple lines of JavaScript in there. And so that's one way you can add JavaScript. Now you can also use JavaScript inside buttons. For example, if we add a button to the web page, button of course only makes sense if the web page is interactive. Otherwise, why would you have a button in a web page that just shows text and images? So you can say button with the button text. That would add a basic button. Of course, we would want to add some text. So you see a button here at the bottom of the screen. Let's move the button all the way to the top. So the button tag will add button to the screen. You'll see when we click it, nothing happens. We can link it to JavaScript, or with JavaScript, then something will happen. For example, we can say on click, and then is equal to, and then your JavaScript code goes in there. So for example, alert clicked, and you'll see now when I click show web page, to update it, we can now click the button and it shows a little pop-up now. The alert function in JavaScript, so this is a function. You can recognize function with the brackets and the semicolon on the end. So that's how you recognize functions in JavaScript. And this function alert will display that you put in this little text. So whatever text you want to display, we click show web page and click me, and you'll see now it displays that text on the screen. So you can do that. Click is, so on click event you can run a function of JavaScript. So 3 different ways to include JavaScript. Now we can also change text on the web page, but in order for that to happen, it would need to know the ID of the tag. So we can give the for example an ID with the ID attribute, and say let's give it some name, for example header, and then in the onClick function we're actually gonna change that code, and we are gonna grab that header. So documents get element by ID, then specify that we want the header, and we say dot inner, or we can try dot text is okay. So let's see if that works. Might need a semicolon on the end. You see that didn't do anything. We might need to give it a little parameter in front. You see, still didn't. So let's try inner HTML. So you can mess around a bit with the code to make it work. So in this case, make sure that the header or the ID you give it is actually the same. So in this case, we gave the ID using the little dash here, and then we could say change the text of that button. So if I click show web page, I can click on the button and it changes that instantly. Now we can do that for anything on the websites. So let's give an ID to, for example, the text below. And then add another button where we change that text. So button, we add another button, and let's say change text. So we have another button, and when we press the first one, the title changes. The second one is not linked with any JavaScript yet, so we can add the onClick attribute and then call JavaScript. So the same code, documents.getElement by ID, but of course we would need to select the ID hashtag text1. And we can say dot inner HTML is, and then your new text. So now if you run it, we can use those buttons to change the text on the website. So you'll see now it interactively changes that to the text we specify here. So all this code, this is a line of JavaScript, and this is a line of JavaScript as well. So you can make websites interactive using JavaScript. Many programmers, what they will do is use JavaScript libraries, so many functions that is written by other people, and then use that in their websites. So they would do that on top and include scripts of other people. Source is some website.com/file.javascript. And they do that because it saves them a lot of time. They use the building blocks of other people's websites, other people's JavaScript files, and that makes their life a bit easier. You can load a JavaScript when the page loads. For example, if we say script, and of course the end tag. Now we can say create some function. So you remember functions are written using the name and the 2 brackets. Now we are actually defining a function, so we need the begin and end tags. So this is the end tag and the end of the function and the begin of the function. And JavaScript needs to know it's a function, so we also write function in front. So now we have a function load, which has the begin and end of the function. And we could say show some alert with some text, and if the window is loaded, so window.onload, you can actually load it. So that would show the alert box when the web page loads. So this is another way to include JavaScript. One of the security risks in pages that happens sometimes is sensitive data exposure. That occurs when a website is not properly protecting its sensitive information to the end user. For example, here we have a login forum website with username password. We know now that we can look at the code of this web page. So if we do right click, we can click view page source or view source, and that would show the HTML code of the web page, so the same code that renders the web page. Now, sensitive information could be shown inside this code. For example, we know this is a login form, and there might be comments in the web page that expose some data that shouldn't be exposed. So if we scroll down here, you'll see there is some comment here. You'll see the HTML comment tag, and it says here developer login username password, right? Username password. So now we would be able to log in to the page because the sensitive data is exposed inside this web page. So we could now try to log in because we have the username password. We found that in our comments on the web page itself. So comments are always written in this. Comments are always written like this. So this is the beginning of a comment and the end of a comment. And you'll see in this case the username password was exposed. So sensitive data can be exposed. JavaScript can also have comments, and JavaScript's comments have the 2 slashes in front. So that is then not executed by the browser. So both are different styles of comments, either // in the front for JavaScript and this style for HTML comments. And sometimes sensitive data is exposed. So that could be a username password, or maybe just a username or some other kind of information that a hacker might use to gain access to the system. Let's take another look at a security risk with web pages. One of the security risks is HTML injection. This is a vulnerability that happens when input is not sanitized. So here we have a simple web page where we can enter a name. So if I click on it, enter some name, and you'll see the text here on top will change if I click the button. So very simple web page. And it does that using JavaScript, of course, because it's interactive. Anything interactive is JavaScript. And so here we have the code. This is the general information of the page, and this is actually what is on the page, so between the 2 body tags. So we have a paragraph text showing the meeting, an input text or an input field. Both of them have a unique identifier, so you'll see ID here and ID here. Both of them have a unique identifier that JavaScript then uses. So here we have onClick with JavaScript code to change the value. So the value of hashtag greet is changed by hashtag name, so whatever is in the input field. So very simple website code. But the main problem with this code is that the input is not sanitized. Anything we type as input is accepted. So we could say, for example, some paragraph text here with whatever tags we want. So we actually insert HTML text as input, and you'll see it adds that to the page. Now this might not be so obvious, so let's use the bold tag. And you'll see now we inserted our own malicious HTML code inside the web page. And now we could change actually how the web page looks because the input is not sanitized. We could say add an image. So an image on the server or anywhere on the web. And I'm gonna make it some smaller. So you'll see now we injected HTML code, we injected an image in here. So of course we can inject different images. So this is not the behavior that you would want in a web page where the input is not sanitized. Now there are several tricks you can do to prevent this. So instead of, for example, saying inner HTML, we could say text content. So when we use text content instead, you can no longer inject HTML. So you'll see if I reload the page and click me, you'll see now it's actually showing everything as text. So that's another vulnerability for web pages. So the rule is never trust user input, because what the user might do is try malicious input. So it might try injecting their own malicious input with HTML code or some other type of code as their input. And that would be, of course, really bad situation, because hackers will try to can manipulate now your page using the code, but sometimes even more bad things they can do, like access the server using all kind of malicious tricks. So always you want to sanitize your inputs.